Joe. He didn't even know me. I had moved into a very large Victorian house, renting out a couple of the rooms. Joe, which is his real name, lived there with his human parent. He was a substantially sized golden retriever that would run up to my car when I would arrive home from work with a stick in his mouth. I'd give him a few little pats on the head and then make my way into the house. Quite a few traumatic things had happened to me before I had moved into this wondrous house. I was grateful to be there, but my heart was terribly wounded. This dog read my heart. It was a soft summer afternoon and I had the house to myself. I quietly made my way out to the large porch that surrounded two sides of that gracious house, sitting down on the steps that faced the orchard. Overwhelmed by grief, I began to cry. Joe quietly walked over and sat like an old friend near the pillar across from the one I was leaning on. The more I cried, the more he began to move in my direction. Little moves, so as not to scare me. Eventually he was at my side, pressing his weight into me, and then he burrowed his head into my neck. I threw my arms around him and just cried dreadfully like a small child. We bonded that day. With permission from his human parent, I began taking Joe on summer walks with me. He was the most well-behaved dog I'd ever met. His human parent had taught me commands like, "Run, Joe," "Heel right," "Heel left," "Release," "Come." I tested those words just for fun. He obediently, and with only a one-time command, sometimes in my softest whisper, responded to them without fail. I marveled. He made me laugh. He would hug me by pressing his weight into me, and our walks began to be the delight of my heart. He was a big old gentle dog, and I was smitten with him. About 2 months into our daily walks, we were passing a long, narrow gravel lane. From quite a distance, I could see two dogs running wildly towards us. Joe ignored my heel right and moved suddenly to my left. And then he turned himself completely to face the charging dogs. One by one, he picked them up in his mouth and shook them, watching and growling fiercely at each of them. I couldn't move. I was frozen in place. He didn't cease, aggressively turning this way and that to grab and shake those dogs. Whimpering, they turned and ran as fast as they could back down that gravel lane. Joe nudged me with his nose, and we started back to the house. When we got home, I squatted down beside him and saw that his mouth was full of their fur. I carefully pulled that mass of fur from his tongue, gently washing out the corners of his mouth, and then I just threw my arms around him. He saved me that day. He fought for me. He encouraged me. He made me feel loved, and it had been a long time since I had felt so. Our time together was short-lived, but I will never forget Joe.
Thanks for listening. Brenda looks forward to connecting with you in the comments. Let her know your thoughts about this story or video in the comments section.